Welcome to the My Messy Grief podcast. I'm Cindy Schuffelbarger, a bereaved mom and the founder of P23 Retreat, where we create space for parents to grieve. In each episode, I'll chat with a guest to learn about outlets for our grief in everyday life. By processing grief in healthy ways, we can learn to find joy again while still honoring and remembering our beloved. I'm so glad you're here, and I invite you to be fully present and just rest as you listen. You might laugh, you might cry, you might be inspired. Whatever emerges, you have permission to be curious, to learn, and to explore. So let's get started with today's guest. Well, welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here today, and we are going to be talking about vision boarding. And this might be old hat for some people, but I'm usually late to the game on things. And so this is new to me, and I'm super excited about it. And so I have joining me Johanna Stamps, and she is a coach with Positive Doing is her company, and she specializes in grief. And so I just welcome you today.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'm just excited to be here and to talk about this. Like right before we came on, I was like, this is something that I've just been doing for such a long time. I never really think about it as being something special or something that people want to talk about. So I'm just excited to chat about it a little bit today.
Yeah, me too. Well, so let's get started with that. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your history with vision boarding?
Yeah, it's interesting because my history with vision boarding is kind of linked in with my history of grief.
Okay.
Because I was going through a very tricky time in New York. This was back in the early 2000s, which, oh gosh, it makes me feel really ancient.
But you're not.
Yeah, this when you go to the grocery store and you're like,
okay.
These people can drink? What? How is that possible?
That's funny. I feel the same way, right?
So crazy in the early 2000s. So I was going through this really interesting time. It's interesting now. It was heartbreaking back then because I was coming to terms with a lot of pain from my youth. And I was starting to speak that and speaking it to people that were safe and are safe. Most of them are still in my life. And it was just like a very small inner circle. And somebody invited me to go to a vision boarding workshop. And I was like, sounds great. I have no idea what to expect. And we walked into this room. It was freezing. It was like this January day. I guess that makes sense because it was like the beginning of the year, but like a January day in New York. And if you've ever been in New York in January and there's been like snow, you're just like schlossing around and like all of this like horrible, like it's crazy. But we got into this like bright white room in like this upstairs loft area. And there were just mountains of magazines, which also makes me feel ancient because everything is digital.
Right.
Like that has become the hardest thing about vision boarding today is like hunting down like recycling centers and be like, give me your magazines. Like the libraries won't even give it to us anymore. It's crazy.
Well, I will say I was just at the Habitat for Humanity Restore yesterday, and they had them for like 25 cents a piece. And I started to buy a bunch. So I can go back if you'd like me to get you some.
We might have like a rallying cry for everybody to
get
magazines together. That would be hilarious. Anyway, so we walked in this huge room and there was like all these magazines. I was like, what have I gotten myself into? And what was really, and I'll talk about like the process later, but what was really interesting for me was just going through that. I had been so like inwardly like, oh, I'm in pain, like so focused on all of my suffering, like the depths of my grief, that I wasn't bringing myself out of that. And this was like a place when I used to talk about this, it was like a place where I could see my heart's desire. Like it brought it out in front of me and I was reminded of who I am.
Beautiful.
And like you hear funny stories like, oh, I put this on my vision board and then it completely happened, or like I put this on my vision board and I went to this like extravagant place without even thinking about it. I just landed there, like people have crazy stories. Jennifer Fulwiler, I think is her last name. She's a comedian and she has the most hilarious one where she made like a vision board of empty theaters at the beginning of like COVID. She made like a vision board of all these places that she was going to do her like comedy, like stand-up routine. And then at the end of the year, she's like, what happened? And her friend said, you got your vision board. They were all empty. So I just find those hilarious and amazing. But I do think that like the strength of this is that what's on the inside, especially as women, we have such a hard time connecting with like, what is that heart's desire? And
Mm,
so for me, seeing that out there was just a reminder to myself of who I actually am. Like I had
mm,
become so deeply connected with my grief that I didn't take the time to actually like to connect with that person. And it was great
mm.
to see it on a page because it gave me the avenue in order to do that.
Yeah, that's great. So you touched on a little bit about the purpose of them and really just kind of getting in touch with yourself a little bit,
Yeah.
maybe shifting your focus. How can these help with our grief?
Yeah. So this is that thing about grief. And especially like as Americans, and I won't even say like North America, I think it's like it's here. There's something in our culture about like the cerebral process. Like there's something that we love our heads. Like we just love to be in this space. And so often when we're talking about our grief and when we're talking about like anything, it's like the experience of it, and we forget about the feeling
Mm,
aspect of it. And so, what's important to remember is that we can only have one thought at a time, but we can have multiple feelings at a time.
hmm,
And I think we forget that, right? Because we're so used to being like, I'm thinking about this one thing, I'm only thinking about this. We sometimes forget that we can have like our deepest sorrows and our highest, most amazing joys, like all in the
mm.
same space, you know? And
Beautiful.
I mean, you hear about this at like funerals all the time. People are like, I'm so sad, but he was hilarious. You know, like there's that all the time,
Right.
you know, that we're able to encapsulate that. And so when I think about like when this has transitioned into a grief exercise, I mean, anybody can do this. But for me, I think it's incredibly important because I have never seen somebody do a vision board that was like all black and horrible and people crying. It's our joy. You
Right.
know? And so suddenly we're like, oh, that's what the joy, like I know what the pain feels like, but this is what the joy feels like. And even by
Mm,
looking at it, we get to actually experience it. And so it's this beautiful, like it's this process of integration that happens. And, you know, as a grief coach, that's what I work with my clients on is integrating so that we can be more whole in this process. But it's like vision boarding actually gives the avenue for doing that.
mm. Love that. And I love this nod to brightness or lightness and color. I often will talk about how in those early days of my grief, it was black and white. And eventually the color comes back to
Yeah.
life. And, you could equate that with joy. You could equate that with being able to experience the full range of emotion, but there's something that feels hopeful in that
Mhm.
space, whether that's a lightness or color. And
Yeah.
I love this idea of being able to see it on paper in front of me because I'm very visual.
Yeah, and most people are. And I mean, there's amazing research now as they're looking at like people in the digital space and people in the like more tactile
Hmm.
space. Like they've done brain scans for people reading Kindles versus reading the actual book. And there is a depth of connection that's happening with a physical book as opposed to a
Ah,
Kindle even. You know, like just
wow.
the fact that it's digital or that we are like so our attention span for the digital space is so limited, but we have this connection, like deeper connection with things that are paper. I have mine right here from this year.
Ah, love it. Love
So there's
that.
just so yeah, like lots of color, lots of like happy people, you know, lots of like love and like there's lots of symbolism in there and things that are like very that mean a lot to me. And it was great to see that on paper. But yeah, I think just to kind of like keep the simplicity of it, of just saying like, this is my joy. This is what joy looks like for me. It, especially as like as a a nonprofit executive or a business owner, sometimes like even that space doesn't feel very joyful. But it's nice to actually see like, oh, this is how my business is showing up. And it's amazing how it has. I mean, just it is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, I love that. So, okay, I'm curious. You showed yours. Is that like typical for the size of it?
I made them. I was actually going to give people bigger ones last year,
Oh,
like even bigger than
okay.
that. I like having just a little bit more space because I don't want people to over edit. If you make it too small, then you have to like take all these
Yeah,
images and fit them into a very small space. So yeah, I like them a
gotcha.
little bit bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that. All right. So again, you're getting me all excited about what's coming in my
Yeah,
opportunity to
January
get to do it.
17th, Inner Work
Right.
Center in Richmond.
I'm going to be there for certain.
Yay!
So would you say there's an ideal time in your grieving process to try to
Hmm.
work on a vision board?
So it's okay. So when I work with grievers in general, they there's something about us like connecting with resources. Like
Mm,
it's like the right resource is there for us at the right time.
right, Tom. Mhm.
And so it can be that somebody like within a couple of weeks or a couple of months come across like this or a grief coach and they're like, this makes sense to me. The amount of people that are like, I told my friend about you. I'm like, okay. I don't wait for people to call me anymore. I'm like, when the time is right, then
Right.
people connect with me and they know it. Like they know deep down inside, like when something is, oh, this seems like something that I would enjoy, or this seems like something that's going to like meet a specific need that I have. And
Mm.
I find that with grief books, with grief therapists or grief coaches, and with resources like this, like tools, like that people say, "Oh, this is it, and I am ready to receive this." So it's completely different for everybody.
I love that. Like, and that interesting that again, as I'm almost 20 years down the road from my loss of Ashlyn, and so looking forward to doing this. It'll be, I'm sure it would have looked very differently years ago, but why not now? Like it's a perfect time to still go deeper in that and maybe see evidence of growth, but then the delight and hopefulness that still lies ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I
So,
think it'll be fun to hear your thoughts afterwards.
right?
Yeah.
We might have to come back and do a post event.
Yeah, that would be good. And I don't say at the beginning, like, let's make this about your loss. Like, because
Right?
we are, like,
Right?
we
It's part
embody
of us.
it. Yeah. So however that shows up for you, I don't dictate kind of like
Hey,
how that like twist and turn looks for you.
love that. So, and for me, like I'm really kind of transitioning. I have one child still at home who's a senior in high school, and so I'm transitioning into kind of the next season of life, and I've
Oh,
started
yeah.
transitioning that by starting this nonprofit is one example of how I've stepped into this new space. But it'll be interesting to see what comes in the moment when I'm
Yeah.
there.
Which
So,
also is a loss. I mean, that's one of the things that we
right,
talk
right,
about a lot
exactly.
is that we overlook all of these losses
These
that we have,
losses.
like, yeah, transitions and losses.
Hmm. Yeah. Thanks for that reminder too. That's perfect. Love it. So, why do you think engaging in this type of activity like a vision board is so powerful?
Oh man. Well, one of the cool things about doing it in person together is about the connection that we have. Like
Mm,
what I've found when I do this with groups is that just over, I almost like equate it to like a quilting group, back in the
mm,
day, even though I know they exist now. Like I just don't know a lot of people who are doing that. But there's something about like having paper in your hand, not really having like intentional face to face intense conversations, but actually just like sitting there and just like chatting. Like there's something about this like
mm,
beautiful like connection that happens there. And then just in general, I think just that taking the time, because I speak so much about the intentionality of our grief. Like, like we've said, like grief is usually a cerebral process that people are like, wow, this sucks. I really don't like that this happened. I mean, that's just, I don't mean to be
right.
tongue in cheek about it, but
No,
I could say a bunch of other things, but that's what's going on in our head.
right.
And instead, it's like, okay, we need to have depth in this. We need to be able to walk a path of intentionality and creativity. And
Mm,
people don't usually put intentionality and creativity with grief.
mm,
Usually
right.
we talk about waves, we talk about the things that are happening to us. What I talk about and what I do with people as a coach is I say, what are the intentional things that we can do? Like when you're thinking about the holidays coming up. I mean, if you walk
Right.
into that, you're walking into landmines.
Right.
And so, but if we put a little bit, if you have a conversation with a group of people, of your loved ones, and say, hey, this is coming up, let's talk about this. Like, what does intentionality look like? It can be, the empty chair. It can be like, let's bring extra thoughts about, cousin Joe that died this year. Let's, all of these things, like
Mm,
the immense creativity that comes out of conversations, these types of intentional conversations, it will blow your mind what can come up when people just say, oh, I can talk about that. Yes, we can talk about that. And that's kind of in the midst of all of this. If all of this vision boarding is also just doing an intentional creative step when it comes to grief.
Mm. So, okay, so I'm fascinated by this idea of intentionality. It's a word I tend to use a lot and try to lean into that. I'm curious, in your experiences, do you find that that is just a muscle to develop, or are some people just wired that way? Any thoughts?
I don't even think that we need to develop it. I think it's instead of a muscle to develop, I feel like it's like a book on the shelf that you haven't read yet.
Mm,
Like it's so within our grasp as humans, and I think we're coming into this place as humanity that we're seeing like what is like just basic humanity, and what is like the dignity of the human person, like what brings us alive, why are we here, like asking all these questions, and creativity and intentionality and being able to do this like creative dance is so human.
right?
So beautifully human. And so like marrying those two things together and saying like, okay, let me give this a try. You would be shocked. Like if you just offer that as an option for somebody, like what
Mm,
they come up with. Unless there's like huge barriers and they're like, well, you're crazy. I'm never listening to you. That happens too. People are like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, you can do this, but some people choose not to.
wow,
And
thank you.
and
Yeah,
then some people like, write books, write plays,
please.
develop songs, build homes like as legacy projects,
Right,
like,
thanks.
just amazing what comes when you just offer this idea of what would intentionality and creativity look like in your
Yeah.
grieving process during this season.
Love that.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about how we are often kind of in our heads and not in our feelings. Do you, as we move into talking about this process of actually creating the vision board, do you help people? You give them permission? Do you give them some prompts? Like how does this whole process work? How do we get out of our head into our feelings and into the vision board?
So I think the process in itself, which is very, very basic. I mean, it was like, I said, I walked into a room, there were
Or
magazines there.
magazines?
Yeah. I do like a bit of like an overview, and I sent the notes to you beforehand of like this is why this makes sense, just to
Mm,
kind of give a little bit of context so that
right.
when they're sitting down there, they're like, okay, I have at least a little bit of an understanding about this. But it is so basic. It is just ripping out the things that you're attracted to.
Right.
Make a little pile. Then the next 30 minutes, you cut them down, make another little pile, and then you place them. Like it can't be more basic. Anybody can do this. Nobody has to be overly creative. This is just something that people can do. So, I mean, it really is that simple.
I like simple,
Yeah,
especially when we're grieving, right?
simple is good. Yeah. I keep trying to find other things that are similar to this, and I just can't find them. Like there's
Mm,
something that's very unique to this. Um, but I think what's the interesting thing about this in particular is that there doesn't at the get-go there doesn't need to be a prompt. Like there's something about the process that brings the head to
Thanks.
the heart anyway, because we're just
Gotcha.
experiencing it. And
Sure.
then I have a couple of questions at the end, just so that they're looking at it with not critical eyes, but curiosity, which is another word
Mm,
that comes up a lot in my work, is
right.
just not being judgmental, but just being curious,
Yes.
which is what I want to develop. I mean, if I could just give the world like one thing, we as a griever, like if we could just take out judgment and then just apply curiosity,
Mm,
like just to be able to do that, I feel like that would be like world changing. I
right.
mean, not just with grief, but with anything, but just to be curious. So getting them into a place of curiosity. And then that head heart connection usually is just there, that it's just that there's something that's very emotive about the process when they're seeing themselves on paper.
Mm, love that. Yeah. And this, I don't know if you're familiar with Mary Frances O'Connor. She's written two books recently. One is, I think, The Grieving Brain and The Grieving Body. And her kind of mantra, or really findings from her research, but grief is learning. And
Mm,
so when we like there's something freeing about that when we
Mm-hmm.
just look at, and that's where that curiosity comes in. It's learning. Like I have to learn how to live my life differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being curious about what I'm feeling, what I'm observing, how my relationships are changing, like all of that. I don't know. There's something about that curiosity and learning that feels like freedom in exploring those things.
Yeah. And I mean, something that I think even you and I have discussed is the fact that when we're going through a time of loss, the things that are most important are the things that are actually in front of us. We let a
Right.
lot of things go out of our life. So from a coaching perspective, that can be incredibly fertile ground
Mm,
because we don't have to wade through all of the other things, all of the things that are just, I mean, distracting us. Sometimes we like bring in distractions not to grieve, but all those extra things in our life, a lot of those have just disappeared. So the things that are most important for us are right front and center, which
right.
that makes the learning process. I feel like it takes all of that extra stuff and it makes the learning process so much easier because we can be more focused. Again, it's giving yourself permission. It's knowing what's available to us as grievers and then giving ourself permission to do that.
Right. So for somebody, I'll just share a personal experience in how I experienced that, but it also came with a frustration was I can remember in the early days after Ashlyn's death, I had very low tolerance for trivial things. And so because in my life,
Yeah.
like what they're talking about felt like a one, not to diminish what they were, but like someone's baby outfit matching their coat like did not feel significant in context of my child died. And so I had to, yes, the things that were most important were right in front of me, and I had to learn grace in
Mm.
that, allowing myself to still value what was most important in front of me, but then also having grace for other people.
Oh, that's
um,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's a
anyway, it
really
can be
good point.
tension. Like it's great
Mhm.
that all of the most important things are front and center, but it
Mhm.
can cause frustration, I think, too, at some.
Yeah,
But again,
that's a
opportunity for
great
growth,
anecdote.
right? Opportunity for growth and learning, which doesn't always feel good, but can be fruitful, right?
Judging by like watching my kindergartner, like learning how to practice pretty much anything,
Right.
like learning is hard. It's so hard.
Learning is hard,
But it's also lovely to be able to see, like, from a pedagogy perspective, like how we can learn, how we just like the building blocks, right?
right?
That we have to give ourselves grace in that as well. That as we're learning, we can't just like, we can't dump everything into us and like learn through osmosis. Like we have to actually take steps and do a little bit at a time and
Mm,
understand a little bit more. So I think that's what you're talking about, the grace that we give
right,
ourselves and being able to do that.
right. Yeah. So, okay. So, what encouragement do you have? I know you've had lots of encouragement for people in the early stages of grief, but what's one bit of advice or one encouragement for somebody right now that's in those early stages of their grief?
Whew. I think we've touched on quite a bit. I think the one that really comes to mind is really finding those safe people.
Mm,
And safety can be, once again, it's once you know what you're supposed to look for, what you can look for, and what's available. Grievers don't. I love this John James quote, and I use it a lot. It's grievers don't need to be fixed; they need to be heard.
mm,
And so, how many people after we've gone through a time of loss, they'll say, all of the like insane platitudes that are out there, and
right.
and that's fine, but most of the time, I mean, it's not fine, but you know what I mean. But
It happens.
grace,
Right.
compassion and grace. And so, but to be able to give ourselves that space and say, okay, who are the people who are just sitting with me,
Mm,
who are just listening to me? These will not be the people that say, oh, it's already been a month. Are you over that?
right.
Okay, the time is ticking, sister. Like, get back to life. It's not going to be those people. It's going to be the people that want to sit with you that want to, that might even like shed a tear with you. I think that's been an important part of my process, is to realize that like it's okay when somebody is crying for me to shed a tear as well. I'm not going to go bawling. I'm not going to like, people
All
aren't going to
right.
have to console me. But, that there is this place of like deep compassion to be able to find those people and to be able to like deeply connect with them. Again, I think this is like an important part of being human, is that to be in a safe space and be able to share our hearts with others is really important.
Mm. And so that's a great word of wisdom too, to anybody that might be listening who is supporting someone in their grief journey, um, to listen and show up and be present. I like to say that grief is to be felt, not fixed.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
similar concept, right? We are a fix it kind of culture, and we don't like to necessarily sit in that space. So,
Mhm.
finding people who are willing and being that person who is willing, like you said, it's human.
Yeah. I was on a coaching call just now, like right before, like a group of coaches. And somebody said, and I'll have to do the research on this, but they said that we only feel our emotions for 7 to 10 seconds.
Really?
It's like at a time, we
Wow.
feel our emotions for
Right.
7 to 10 seconds. I'm like, wait, but we think about things for years.
Right?
Like how much real estate has been taken up in our brain from like things
Brains.
that we've experienced that we just like relive it over and over and over again. And
Wow.
oftentimes, once we make that connection, when we actually have the feeling as opposed to the thought, like
Mm,
it's amazing, like how things just kind of like there's like a, I don't know, it's, I guess, I can't remember the author's name, but he talks about like integration, like in
mm,
grief, and like how when that happens, like it's like there's just kind of like this lifting and this letting go that happens.
mm.
So anyway, just, I guess that's another encouragement to like to do the feeling.
Right? Do the feeling.
Do the feeling.
Do the feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I am super excited to learn a little bit more about this, and even more excited that I'm going to get to come participate. So I would invite any of our local listeners. January 17th, Johanna's going to do a local event, and I will be sure to put information in the show notes so that people know how to reach out to you, connect. Anything you want to share a little bit about your grief coaching? I know you have a certain process that you use. You just want to mention that for a minute before we
Yeah.
close?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, if you want to just be encouraged every week, Friday morning at 8 o'clock, I send out my weekly message. You can go to my website, positivedoingcoach.com. It's spelled like it sounds, and you can sign up for that there. And then I'll also have the links for the vision boarding. Yeah, from a coaching perspective, there's two resources that I have. One is this beautiful resource that was created by John James. It's been around for 40 years. It's the only evidence-based program that's out there. It's called the Grief Recovery Method.
Mm,
And what he realized when he was grieving that his loss of child was that there was a lot of books out there that were talking about how you feel in grief, but not a lot that talked about a process.
mm,
And some people want to have that, like, 7 to 10 steps that they can take and make it very linear. And so that is a wonderful tool for people that are
mm,
saying, okay, I want to learn the basics of doing this. And I want to be able to, I want to actually do this intentionally.
mm,
So it's a way of doing that intentionally. And then, some people who don't want that like incredibly linear, like boxed in method, which is, valuable, but they want to have a space to explore. I'm also an ICF coach, so International Coaching Federation, which was one of those like gold standards of coaching. And so we do a beautiful coaching, like very traditional coaching methodology, but just applied to grief, where
mm,
we just look at what's there and we explore and we set an intention of what the desired outcome is. And we go into that place of compassionate curiosity.
mm.
And we get to live in that space for an hour and then just see what happens.
Yes.
And it's magical to me what's available in that space and just how beautiful we are as humans, especially grieving humans.
Mm, love that. And our mission for P23 Retreat is creating space for parents to grieve. So obviously, this compassionate curiosity and creating space, is perhaps why we're so aligned. I don't
I
know,
know. Love
right?
you, Cindy.
Beautiful things happen in that space,
I'm
right?
so happy to be connected with you.
So
It was
yeah.
so good.
So, well, thank you for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you on the 17th.
Cool. I can't wait to
All
have
right.
you.
Yeah. All right. Have a great day.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of My Messy Grief. Grief is a reminder of our love for someone. Grieving is hard work and is meant to be felt, not fixed. If you know a parent grieving the loss of a child, send them our way at p23retreat.org. Likewise, if you want to help to support our ministry, drop by our website to give the gift of hope to a grieving parent. May today be filled with moments of light, even in the darkness and messiness of grief.